This is the concierge, sir.
And welcome back, everybody. This is Brian. I'm your host for Concierge Confidential. We're back. We survived Thanksgiving. We survived F1. And we're back here on the podcast. So this podcast is going to be a little bit more of like an update on what's going on in Vegas and what's going on, in my life and that kind of thing. I'll give you a slight update of F1 in this particular pod as well. But we'll get into that after the little break. So make sure you come back as little update. Hey everybody, just wanted to make sure that you guys knew about my new podcast out. It's called The Magic of Movies, a film podcast where I talk about all my favorite movies, the movies out in theaters or streaming, and also talk about the Oscar race going on right now. So make sure to check it out. It'll come out once a week, and that'll be on the Magic of Movies podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, everybody, so welcome back. So we're going to be talking about a little bit of what's going on in Vegas, I suppose, and also like kind of what's going on that I've been up to. So how was F1 is always the question. So how did F1 go? So the funny thing was, guys, is that I was not here for F1. I don't know. Like maybe you comment, like let me know, like kind of on Twitter or Instagram or wherever, how you feel about F1. Because I think I'm in like sort of the majority of many Las Vegans who find F1 to be not exciting when it comes to Vegas, and I'm just like not interested in the event in general. I know I might be like one of the lone Vegas podcasters who thinks that way, but I don't know. Like a lot of my feed is a lot of the typical Vegas influencers who get invited to go to F1, obviously, and check all these things out. And the thing is that I'm not worried that I don't get invited because honestly, it probably wouldn't work with my actual schedule. But again, I remember this is very much comes down to like when I used to be a concierge. Yeah, you would get invited to things and you would go, and it's awesome because it's free. And free things are awesome. That's just the way that it works. So I know this year that it didn't have as many people as the year before. So it also didn't take as long as for them to put together the track. Which was good. So that was nice. But overall, I wasn't here. I was actually in California with my mom celebrating my birthday. We ended up going and watching a bunch of movies. We ended up going and doing a bunch of LA things. Like we went to Delilah's in Los Angeles. We also went to Musso and Frank's, which is in LA, which is one of the oldest steakhouses in Hollywood. And it was really fun. So I'm actually kind of glad that I did not stay for F1. Hopefully, if you guys did come for F1, good for you. If you watched it, good for you. But really, again, not my thing. But I will update what happened this week. So my brother came into town, and he was with his friends, who I tend to hang out a lot with when they come to town, at least when I can. And I have thoughts. So they come in a pretty large group. They usually come about... because they're all married, so they came about 8 to 10 people. Does that make sense? And it was really fun. It actually was really, really fun. But the first night, so we ended up going to STK just for like a light dinner before, because I met up with them. And I have to say, STK, because I hadn't been in a while. I haven't been to STK in probably almost 8 years now. And STK is actually really, really fun. I think it's really good with the group. The food was actually very, very good. I ended up getting the short rib because I had steak like the night before or the week before. So I decided to go something that wasn't like a actual strip of steak, which very doable. Like you can actually do, I think, a New York strip for around $76, which actually isn't bad for STK. They have lots of cuts of meat, which is actually a really nice little option. And they also have a lot of different entrees. They have a bronzino. They also have Chilean sea bass. They have a braised short rib, which is what I had. They have a lot of different sides. They have fries. They have mashed potato. They have potato puree, corn, asparagus, lots of salads like Caesar, and they have a wedge salad, obviously. So pretty large options. Good drink menu, which is important, I think. But I have to say, really impressed with how SDK was, especially with the group. It's really, really fun. It's a really good atmosphere. They have really lively music. Every song that came on was kind of a banger. I wouldn't say this is a great place for like a romantic date, just because of how the seating options are. But definitely much more of a group-oriented restaurant. So SDK, really good for groups, maybe not for dates, but overall, really, really positive experience over at SDK. I would say if you're going to go, I would say you're probably going to spend about $110, $120 a person. So $240 is kind of what you're looking at, and that's probably with tip and all that other good stuff. So again, just keep an eye out if you're going to go to SDK. So overall, good experience at SDK. But man, it gets busy on the weekends. Whoever said Vegas was dying, obviously hasn't been to Vegas on Thanksgiving weekend at nighttime. So we went on Friday, and it was pretty busy. But I kind of know the back way into Cosmopolitan, so it wasn't too bad getting in. But after that, we ended up walking around. I would say, guys, if you are coming to Vegas on the weekend, that speakeasies are probably like a no-go on the weekends, especially the ones at Cosmopolitan, especially ones that are really popular, like Easy's over at Aria. Would not recommend speakeasies during big weekends like that, just because it's basically impossible to get in, and it sort of defeats the purpose of going to a speakeasy. You don't want to be waiting in line to go in, and it's just really kind of shitty experience. So my brother really liked barbershop, which is not my thing. My brother loves barbershop at Cosmopolitan. We walk up, and it's about 9:15, 9:30, and there's a doorman there. We go up to the doorman, and it's not a long line, and we're like, oh no, we don't have reservations because they have a bunch of tables in there. And they say, oh, well, we're not doing general admission until 10:30. Well, fuck off, dude. Like, come on, man. Like, this is what I hate. So I used to work for MGM Properties, and this is the problem I have with MGM Properties, is everything is so corporatized. It's just so annoying. Like, just let people in, dude. Like, if there's a line out the door, there's a line out the door. But, like, that's what you want. But I don't know. It's just so annoying. Anyway, so we left barbershop, and I was like, oh, we could try this other, like, cool, like, little spot, and it's called the Ski Lodge, which is over at the other end of Cosmopolitan. And we walk up, which is on the other end of the hotel, which, again, can I just talk about this, guys, again? Like, if you're in a group, I don't want to hear that you're mad that you have to walk inside of a hotel. Like, I can only do so much. This is, you know what I mean? Like, as somebody who, like, guides people places, I didn't make you go outside. I didn't make you cross the street. It's inside the hotel. So, again, just try to understand that, like, things are at different places. Understand you have to walk to get places. So, we went up. We went all the way over to the Ski Lodge. We get in line. So, actually, when we're walking up, I just start to see that there is a line, and I'm like, oh, God. So then we get in line, and of course we're, waiting. So now we're starting to brainstorm and try to figure something out. They say, hey, why don't we go back to Clique, which is downstairs, which Clique is another one of those, like, corporatized bars. So we go down there, which was my idea, so I'll take fault for it. But we get there, and of course, they have a bunch of tables open, and everybody's at the the bar, and one of the lead people in the group was like, oh, well, we can do a $400 beverage minimum, whatever, which is fine. It was cool there. I think there was like 6 people, so it actually ends up not being too bad. But again, it's like you get there, and then you open up the menu, and one of the people in the group was looking at one of the specialty drinks that has dry ice in it, and it's not available. Like, well, what are we doing then, guys? If you're going to be charging this much for the table, you should have all the things available for that table available. I'm sorry. That's just how it's got to be. It's a high standard, but it's Vegas. You're the Cosmopolitan. We're expecting, a lot more than that. So, but overall, Clique was okay. Clique was fine, like in terms of vibes. The food, the drinks were good. But again, I'm just so over this corporatized thing in Vegas. And I did an episode a while back with Ryan Hunter where I was like, we want to bring back bring back just cool lounges, like lounges with live music. Doesn't have to be a DJ, just live music or a comedy act or something where people can just sit down, relax, hang out, and then like enjoy their night. Like I just think that there's just so much policing of the spaces and gouging people for prices. It's just becoming so annoying that you can't go with a group anywhere in Vegas and not have to walk out of there with a $500 bill or sorry $500 charge. I don't know. It's kind of turning me off about things in Vegas, especially for groups. Like I'm a single person. I could walk up to bars and sit down and whatever I want to do and go to places that I go to. But people who are tourists coming to Vegas, they don't want this. You know what I mean? Like I know you guys are out there coming to Vegas and you're coming with a group and it gets expensive and you want to find things to do with everybody, but it's really difficult. And sometimes, especially when you're not the leader of the group, you have these great ideas, which hopefully you're getting from the podcast, and you present them, and it takes a little bit of planning, guys. It takes a little bit of planning. And I think everybody would do much better of just planning a little bit more when they come to Vegas or go on any vacation in general. So, I don't know, I would say trust the person that's doing a little bit of the research. Like, if you ask me, really good places to go, like if you are a group of this size, like let's just say 10 people, really good places to go in town that are really fun and really good for adults. You can go over to the Flight Club, which is at the Venetian, which is really good. It's not overly priced, very doable, good amount of space. It doesn't get overcrowded, but it's a fun little spot where it has darts, it has drinks, it has food. Definitely something that I would recommend. I would also recommend Topgolf. It's also a really great option. Of course, it's really fun. Everybody has it everywhere else in the world. Really good little space. I would also recommend if you wanted to go to Brooklyn Bowl. Brooklyn Bowl is really fun. It's not overly priced, but you're doing an activity at the same time and it feels worth it. I just think we are kind of getting to this point where like tables are sort of like not a thing of the past because they're always going to be there, but it's nice to be able to do an activity for those prices. Like at Brooklyn Bowl, it's probably $300 a lane for like 2 hours, but at least you're like bowling. It feels active. You're doing something. When we were sitting at the table, it took a little time for us to kind of get warmed up to be talking and having a good little time. There wasn't like anybody dancing in that little area. So, I don't know. It's just annoying. But yeah, I would say just be open to trying different things and having to go different places. But again, just planning ahead of time can just do so much. And just find somebody that you trust to plan the things out. And just go with it. And also do not, get on them if something doesn't go your way. It is really hard planning things, and I've done it. I did it for a long time. I no longer really plan things when people come to Vegas, especially if I know them, because I know a lot of people that don't plan, and I'm a big planner, and I end up becoming the one that's stressing the most about what happens in the group. And that's a me thing, I understand, but it is difficult having to like be the planner, and if something doesn't go right, everybody's always wants to criticize, and it's tough. So that night went on. Like really quick, like I went to California with my mom, which is 2 people, much easier to plan for just 2 people. But we had like a slight outline of what we were gonna do. One night we had a reservation for Delilah's, which that was like the event that we were doing that night, and we had a reservation. Walked right in, sat down, had dinner. We're able to have drinks at the bar, hang out for a little bit, and I was like, okay, cool, like it's time to go home. And that was all beautifully planned out. Why? Because I did it. That's why. But it was like the only plan we had that day. Everything else was just a little bit more loosey-goosey. We'll get to the hotel, relax a little bit, and then we'll do our one activity. The one big day was the Saturday, which I'll probably talk about this actually on a different podcast because I really want to go on with it. I'll probably talk about it on the Magic of Movies podcast, which is the other podcast that I do, which comes out on Wednesdays. And I'll talk about sort of the experience of going and watching those movies. But on Saturday, we had a whole plan. We had to watch 2 movies in one day, squeeze in dinner, and also, be upright and do some, shopping. So it was all done perfectly. We had the 2 movies we had to get to. Those are our scheduled things that we had to do. I couldn't get a reservation at Musso and Frank's. It's very, very popular, but we knew we had to get there early, right when it opened, which there was a line. And then because we got there when it opened, we were able to get a seat at the counter because I'd been there before. So I kind of knew sort of like how it was going to work. Got a seat at the counter, had a full dinner, perfect, rolled out, walked over to the movie theater, boom, and we're in the movie, and without rushing. It was a very calm evening. So just a little bit of planning goes a really long way. So I just really think you have to trust people who plan stuff for you. So, anyways, my brother's in town, so we went to Cosmopolitan, and then I saw him again on Saturday. They went to brunch. I didn't go to brunch, which they went to Spago, which they really, really enjoyed. They went like around 1, got out about 4, which usually brunches end about 3:30 or 4 o'clock, so keep that in mind. They had a good time. I ended up going to Fountain Blue, hung out at Fountain Blue for a little bit, had my drinks. If you go right now, though, Fountain Blue actually has a gigantic ice rink where their pool usually is, and they also have a Christmas-themed bar where Azul is, which is really, really fun. And I ended up going to my regular spot over at the Collins Bar, which they have a special holiday menu. So they actually have really, really fun different cocktails just for wintertime. So highly recommend checking that out. I really enjoyed the neon lights, or whichever lights one there is. And it was really, really good. Had this like cool like red wine foam, and it was very, very sweet, but quite delicious. So moving on from that, I ended up meeting them up over at the Pinky Ring, and oh my God, guys, the Bellagio may be open for the rest of time. Just because when I drove over to get to the Bellagio, I got there, and oh my God, there were cops, there were crossing guards, which usually there's crossing guards, but there were cops and crossing guards. It was so busy that the valet was full, which I've only seen that maybe like twice in my entire life, this being the second time. Had to parked valet, went inside, went to the Pinky Ring. I didn't have a lot of time. What I could have done was, whip around, go to Cosmopolitan, walk over. We didn't have time for that. So meet up with everybody. We're going to the Pinky Ring, which is Bruno Mars's nightclub. We ended up sitting at like a nice little table. Somebody had arranged it. Again, I didn't want to do the arranging. But this is a good little note. If you are somebody that is joining the party, it is a good tip to stay out of the decision-making processes. What do I mean by this? So let's just say like someone is buying a bottle or they're getting 2 bottles for the table. You're just there to like, again, this is just me because I'll drink anything. You're just there as an extra body to get into the club, because sometimes that's what you are, whether you're male or female, mostly female. And 2, typically you are just there to cut down on the price of the bottle. That's usually and obviously you might be friends, but that's usually the reason that you might be the person who's invited to the nightclub. So that's what all I'm there for. I'm not making any decisions. You can help. Obviously, you have to say, hey, like, should we get vodka or tequila? No, you could say, hey, like, you can drink a lot with vodka, or you can drink this with tequila. So again, if they ask your opinion, you can give it, but don't be the one in there making the decisions. I usually just step back, let other people do it. Again, you kind of have to know your role in those situations. So we ended up getting, I believe, 2 bottles, because I believe there was a minimum, so they ended up just getting 2 bottles anyways. Be really nice to the people there. There's typically one cocktail waitress and then like 1 or 2 bussers, typically 2 bussers that handle that table. And it was a really fun time. It's a little bit older crowd, but again, that makes sense for places like the Bellagio. And it's nice because it has a different little flavor. They do have live music on the inside, which makes it really, really fun. I've reviewed this before, so if you ever want to go back and check it out, you can check out on the feed. It's under Pinky Ring. And everybody started dancing. Usually earlier in the night, it's not as much dancing because people are kind of just sort of getting liquored up. They're drinking a little bit. And it was funny because there was definitely a guy in there that was a member of the Triads, and it was awesome. Like, it really felt like we were going to be in the middle of a Jackie Chan, Chris Tucker movie, if I stay there any longer. But we ended up dancing. They do have 1 bathroom inside of there, which sometimes is worth it and sometimes not worth waiting for. Just got to make sure you know how long the line is. But it was very interesting just because it was fun being with a group, and it's definitely a place you want to be with a group. It's not a place you can go alone. I mean, you can, but there's lots of really awkward places to stand, and it's really not made to be a place where people stand around. Definitely a place that you want to go with a group. It's a really, really fun time. It's not like super duper loud, but of course, when you're right next to the stage, the band can get quite loud in there. But all in all speaking, I think I ended up spending like $100 and some the first night, and like $150 the second night for, my portion of the bottle. I would say if you are coming with a group, make sure that all of your like money sharing apps are working and you've used them before. Like, I don't really use Zelle. I use Venmo a lot, but on Zelle, you just make sure that that's all logged in and ready to go. A lot of times you can give people money in advance. A lot of times do it at the table. But I think it's really good to work out in advance who's going to be putting the card down. Typically the way that it works, just so everybody knows, it's sort of like when you rent a car. It's much better, or a hotel, it's much better to actually put the reservation or the hold on, and this is kind of remedial for a lot of people, on a credit card rather than a debit card. Because if you put it on a debit card, just like those other options, it takes the money out right away, and then it can replace it, but it takes a couple days to put it back into your account. With a credit card, it puts it on hold. Once you settle up with either a different card or cash, that money will go back to your credit card, and there's not as much of like a hold on that amount of money. But when it's a debit card, they take that money right out, and I don't really recommend it. And sometimes you have to do it, but I want you guys to know this, that typically when we charge a credit card, it doesn't get charged right away. It's usually just a hold. So it doesn't show up on your bank statements unless you're looking at it like right at that second. So for those of you trying to hide it from your wives, I get it. But it usually will put a hold on it. It looks like a charge. It drops off after like 3 days if you replace it and pay with some other form of payment, whether it be a different debit card or cash. And every place will always take cash. Always. So again, keep it in mind. And they also typically do charge, 20% usually on gratuities. So keep that in mind as well as your taxes. So that also happened at STK as well. There was only 6 people and they charged us auto gratuity. So make sure you're reading the fine print when you're looking at those receipts, because they will never tell you. It never happens. They never tell you, oh, I've included the gratuity. They will never tell you that. You have to do that on your own. So that was my weekend. It was really fun. It was really fun seeing my brother. I believe he had a good time. But overall, I would say when you're coming in large groups, try to be patient with everybody in the group. I have trouble with that a lot of the times because I walk very fast. I'm moving quickly. I know where I want to go. And I forget that people like to walk leisurely everywhere. By the way, if you see me in town, I never walk leisurely on the Strip. I don't walk on Las Vegas Boulevard outside for very long because I'm not a leisurely walker. I get to A to B as fast as humanly possible. But thank you so much for listening, guys. Next week, I'll try to do a hotel highlight. I think that'll be fun. I'll probably talk about the Cowboy Christmas, probably maybe later this week or maybe next week. I don't know which one yet. But a lot of fun stuff at the end of the year. Really appreciate you guys listening up to the podcast. Make sure you follow us on all of our socials. Concierge Confidential _LV. Brian Ortega 26 on Instagram. At Keys to Vegas for any of our older videos that we've done. But just make sure you check us out wherever you get your podcast, obviously. So, again, thank you so much for listening, everybody. If you see me out in town, probably at Fontainebleau or Delilah's, come up, say hello. But remember, keep it confidential.